I guess just to kind of kick us off, just for the people who are maybe listening and are a little less familiar, can you just tell me your name and your role if possible?
Sure, happy to. I'm Anna Marie Slott. I'm the Global Sustainability ESG Partner at Ashurst. And what that means essentially is it's a role we created in 2019. It's got several facets to it. One part is about how we work with our clients. So what are our clients' challenges around sustainability? And in particular for us, that means a lot around net zero and net negative commitments, also circular economy. But in particular, as a law firm, we spend a lot of time talking with our clients about governance issues as well. And the role also includes setting the strategy internally for the firm and how we are committing, how we're standing behind, our role in that wider climate transition. So my background originally is as a finance partner. So I've worked across a couple different regions of the world doing capital markets deals for a couple decades.
Fantastic. I mean, and just talking about that relationship with clients then, I mean, how's the sort of buy-in in that area? Do you find clients are sort of coming to you because of a genuine volition in terms of changing their business practices? Or is there kind of a hint of, I don't want to say obligation because that's not the right word, but is it a case of companies kind of coming to you saying that we feel like we should change, but we just have no idea sort of how to do it?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of confusion in the market. I have to say between sort of 2019 and now, if you had tried to predict how quickly this has become part of the culture and the conversations that you have across business, no one would have predicted it to move as fast as it has. But what we're finding is, there has been a real engagement by many clients with the opportunities that this affords. In particular, areas like energy transition. We do a lot of work with clients on the transition, but also in the infrastructure space and places like that. And I think, there's no denying there has been an onslaught of regulations. And if you look at any of the graphs, they show, the year-on-year growth in regulations is something that if you were an investor, you would love to see that curve on your investments. But I think so. What that has created is a world where a lot of people don't entirely know what they want to do, but also what they need to do. And so it's creating some clarity in that space for people where, you're able to kind of work with them as a resource to say, look, these are the regulations. These are regulations that are coming. And certainly we have a lot of people interested in that. But also thinking about, what do you do to get ahead? How do you position yourself to really take advantage of these opportunities that are coming from transition?
Yeah, and I mean, on the subject of transition, of course, there's a lot of the calls to action are for a transition plan that's robust, that's credible, that's ambitious. All of that equally, valid. But I mean, for you guys, I guess a diverse range of clients, I should imagine. How kind of important is it to sort of stay adaptive and sort of versatile there?
Yeah, look, it is adaptive and versatile, but they're fundamentally strategy plans for a company, right? And lawyers actually do this quite a lot. We don't badge ourselves with kind of consulting hats, but we do talk with companies about the risks and opportunities in their strategy. We work with them about how they talk about that. So what do you say about that publicly?
Yeah.
I think something that's really interesting in the sustainability space is a lot of the regulations don't make a distinction between a public company and a private company. Right. And so it's based on size. And so these transition plans, as they come into force, are going to require companies that kind of have always historically been private to be saying things publicly. And that's a little bit scary for people. But fundamentally, it's about making sure that you've diligenced what you're saying, that you know what you're saying, that you mean what you're saying, which, sometimes people will say something and they won't exactly think, okay, well, how are the different ways that could be taken?
Yeah.
Like if I were to not have the information I have right now saying that comment, if somebody looked back 2 years later and said, well, what does that really mean? it's about having the integrity of that system in your governance so that you can really be solid in what you're putting out there into the world and what you're saying. And that's a little bit daunting for even public companies who are, very fixated on making sure that they're accurately putting information out into the world.
I mean, and this is purely from my reading, I mean, you seem fairly optimistic about the job on hand. Is that fair to say?
I think it's a really exciting time in terms of what we're looking at.
Yeah.
If you think about the opportunity, you're sitting in a time where we're trying to recreate the entire business ecosystem of the world.
Yeah.
Right. And you can see that as dire and horrible and awful. But you could also see that as an unbelievable opportunity to like create this new reality for your kids and your kids' kids, right? And it depends on which sci-fi series that you watched as a child, whether you watched the ones that were dark or whether you watched the ones where everybody kind of got along. And so, but I think if you think about what could the world do with these things, we know so much more about pretty much every aspect of the economic system than we did before. And all that information is swirling around, and all these different voices are being heard that were never heard in the past and never had any platform to be heard in the past.
Yeah.
And I think it's bumpy. It's scary.
Yeah.
Change is always scary for everyone. Change is bad. But change is inevitable. Change is the only inevitable thing, together with death. And I think if you think about, I have an opportunity to come in today and rethink how I do what I do. And if you have that in your back of your mind and you think, am I doing this the best way possible? Or is there some other way to do it?
Yeah.
Then it becomes something that you can look forward to.
Yeah.
And something that you could really derive a lot of enjoyment out of.
It's like the more you know, the more you sort of realize you don't know in many ways, isn't it?
Yeah, well, dare I say, you do have to get yourself comfortable with not being able to know everything. And as I can tell you, for my tribe of lawyers, it's not easy for a lawyer to say, I don't know the answer to this. It's actually pretty antithetical to our entire training. But there's the whole scenario of what is possible is going to depend on a lot of moving pieces, none of which we're in control of, right? Yeah. And so you do have to be able to kind of embrace the ambiguity a bit, and that's a hard one.
Yes, I like I say, I suspect no such thing as a quiet day for you.
No. It's it's never boring.
True. Well, with that in mind, then let's talk about you. To finish up. What have you got coming up in the next sort of few months? Are you going to say exciting, daunting? What's on the agenda for you?
Exciting and daunting. Yeah. So, I think just more of the same. I sit on a couple of boards for some different fintech startups.
Yeah.
I find that really interesting and exciting. It's all about the solution space. One of them is called Carbonaires, which is a carbon management company about very, very high integrity carbon markets, trying to build that so that we have a real tool to be able to get to where we need to get to. Another one is about impact and the SDGs, which is also really fascinating. How do you aggregate all this data into something that investors can use, right? Because sometimes it's too much, yeah. Right? And people just want you to say, okay, is it a gold star or is it a silver star or is it a bronze or am I not even on the star list, right? Because, people have a lot going on. And so it's hard. It's going back to change is hard. It's hard to be able to reflect change in your everyday life because you've got so much going on that people tend to try to, optimize what they're doing. But okay, that's just like before, and that's just like before, and that's just like before. But really, this is a time where we should be adding like an extra 15 minutes, or taking 15 minutes from a meeting where people are just chatting, and take that 15 minutes and think, okay, if I were standing 10 years from now and looking back, what would I have done today? How would I have changed what I did today? Because 10 years from now, I want to be somewhere else. And that's that, building that space into a conversation is hard. It's hard. But I think fantastic opportunity for people right now.
Well, in that spirit, I mean, we're talking at the 2023 Global Conference. I would love to sit down with you next year and say, how's things going? What's been the main talking points? But I'm sure you're very busy, but I'd love to keep picking your brains. But for now, thank you so much for joining me. What a pleasure.
Thank you.